Welcome back! My name is ballerscuba. This is Video Games Over Time. We are still in 1984. Today, we're going to talk about Sorcerer. The story of Sorcerer takes us back to Infocom. We have talked about Infocom several times before. They have been responsible for the Zork games as well as Planetfall. We last talked about Infocom in our video on Enchanter. Sorcerer was written by Steve Moretsky, who had also written Planetfall. Sorcerer is the sequel to Enchanter. It is an interactive fiction game that runs very similarly to the other interactive fiction games we have played to this point. The first official release of Sorcerer, known as Release 4, was published on January 31st, 1984. The final release of the game would be Release 18, which was published on September 4th, 1986. That is a very brief history of Sorcerer. With that now told, it's time to take a look at the physical items that came with the game. It starts with a copy of a fake magazine named Popular Enchanting. The cover shows a price of 3 Zorkmids or 5 Zorkmids outside Frabaz. It shows a drawing of a door with a door knocker in the shape of a demon. There is a sign on the door knocker that says Gone Frotzing, signed by Belbaz. The cover teases stories by reading Belbaz at 200. Is retirement in his future? Special book excerpt. Spells and the Single Sorcerer. The Power of Positive Conjuring. Learning with Nusto. And coming next month, should enchanters in glass mazes throw spells? Inside, the first story is titled Gazing into the Orb. It reads, They came to Antharia from all corners of the kingdom. Girth and Mythicus, the frigid river valley, Borfi, even the Grey Mountains. They packed the restaurants, and for the first time in 150 years, the rusty knife in West Anthar ran out of sea serpent fillet. They completely filled the Zilton Hotel, and in 3 days spent an estimated 20,000 Zorkmids on marble trinkets, Bellaquise souvenirs, Flathead Stadium tickets, and Spenceweed shakes. Yet despite the success of the tourist trade, the pageantry, and the beautiful weather, the 115th Convention of Enchanters and Sorcerers, CES, was an unqualified disaster. Why? There's too much showing off, too much one-upmanship between the chapters, and no cooperation, said Barbel of Girth, of Guildmaster and elder member of the Circle of Enchanters. We're here to share and exchange our advancements in thaumaturgy, and to try to solve our common problems, not to compete against each other in some sort of free-for-all. Frankly, I'm disgusted. And so are we. Conventioneers at CES seem totally unwilling to discuss, much less resolve, the problems facing the Guild of Enchanters. The chronic glut of enchanters in and around Thrift, the crippling shortage of enchanters in the Grey Mountains, the grumblings of some junior sorcerers about leadership stagnation, the spiraling costs of an enchanter's education, the pros and cons of regulating magic potion distribution. All these issues and more could have benefited from an open dialogue among the chapters. Instead, the assembled enchanters, whose reputation for sobriety and consideration is generally well-deserved, indulged shamelessly on flog and tonics, and made an overall nuisance of themselves. This is great, said one apprentice from the Girth City chapter after he had happily cast the Zuka spell, turn eggs into overripe cabbage, just as the Thrift chapter sat down to breakfast. Moments later, someone, probably from the Thrift chapter, cast the Stegaw spell, turn eggs into ripe guano, at the Girth City chapter breakfast, whose members thereafter were unable to keep anything down. Such pranks may seem harmless, but they do little to improve communication between the chapters. They can also get out of hand. During the opening ceremonies on the first evening of CES, for instance, an enchanter from Arrogane cast the Feel Free spell, display gratuitous fireworks, inside Convention Hall. Literally dozens of other enchanters subsequently cast Feel Free inside the hall, each trying to outdo the other. Not surprisingly, the old wooden hall caught fire. Just as someone would cast the Gondar spell, extinguish fire, someone else would claim a better or improved Gondar spell and restart the fire to display their talents. This went on for nearly an hour before order was called, and the hall suffered much damage. The Guild of Enchanters has successfully regulated itself for hundreds of years. It helped bring stability to the land following the turbulence of the Great Underground Empire's collapse, and today underwrites many fine philanthropic foundations. How ironic and disappointing, then, that it can't turn its wisdom and wonder unto itself, and behave in a more professional and responsible manner, to address its serious problems and ensure a healthier future for us all. The next page has letters to the editor. They read, "To the editor, in your otherwise excellent article on the Feel Free spell, you neglected to mention its derivations. Feel Free is a modification of the expression feel free, which perhaps explains its unrestrained use among some enchanters. PDL, Borfi." To the editor, so Orkan of Thrift is now selling wand racks? He's a guild master, not a carpenter. Next thing you know, actors will be selling salad dressing. HDA, Acardi. To the editor, I'm sure many of your readers would be surprised to learn that there are some remote areas of the Empire where people still do not practice magic. An article about these underdeveloped communities would be quite amusing. SWG Mythicus. To the editor, your recent article entitled "Should Enchanters and Glass Mazes Throw Stones?" reminded me of a few other age-old questions that perhaps modern magic can answer. Which came first, the time paradox or the tamed parrot ox? Is a Zorkmid truly the root of boll weevils? If the land were the sky and the sky were the land, would things fall up and grow down? SEM, whereabouts unknown. There is also an advertisement for the popular Enchanting Home Sorcerer's How-To Library Volume 1. Build your own medieval village, complete with Enchanter's Hall. It says, simplifies even the most complex problems. Available exclusively from Infocom. The next article is Belboz at 200. Is retirement in his future? At the top is a picture of Enchanter Hall. The picture has the description, Enchanter Hall on the scenic GUE Tech campus, where Belboz the Necromancer recently addressed young enchanters of tomorrow. The article reads, recently, Belboz the Necromancer was lecturing to a senior class at GUE Tech's School of Enchantment in Greater Borfi. The great thaumaturge departed from his prepared text on the baffling behavior of babbling baby brogmoids biting broccoli to discuss enchanters' ethics, a hot issue in magical circles these days, and he gave a predictably level-head perspective. What are the criteria for determining which actions are morally right and morally wrong? The most famous answer is that power and might are never wrong. But can beauty, happiness, or fireworks be ignored? Certainly not. Doing the decent thing in the face of many juicy and despicable alternatives takes enormous willpower and always arouses the skepticism of others. And an orator who sprinkles a speech with flowery and vivid images to keep his audience glued to their seats is no more ethical than a sorcerer who casts the Foblub spell to achieve the same ends. Leaders espousing moderation or temperance are rarely heard or heeded at our universities in these dreary times, yet Belboz received a 30-minute sitting ovation from his audience. Belboz had in fact used the faux blub spell on the audience, gluing them to their seats. Such is the respect and esteem accorded to this wise, crinkly-eyed master sorcerer who turns 200 years of age this month. Belboz is well known as a model sorcerer, an exemplar for all young enchanters. Born an orphan near Arrogane Falls in the Frigid River Valley, he was the eldest of 6 brothers and sisters. His guardian uncle, a well-to-do but simple-minded cave digger, tried to get young Belboz interested in construction work, but Belboz talked only about magic, reading everything he could find on the subject. His uncle finally relented and sent Belboz to Borfee Harbor, where he was tutored by a master magician for the next 20 years. My uncle thought thaumaturgy was a communicable fish disease, and fancied I sat on a dock for 20 years telling carp to open wide and say, "Ah," says Belboz. He then spent a 30-year apprenticeship in the Accompanies chapter of the Guild of Enchanters, became a full-fledged enchanter in 820 GUE, and traveled south to Girth and Mythicus, where he pioneered research on anti-caking additives to magic potions. His success in perfecting dozens of spells, notably the Lowball spell, Sharpen Hearing, and the Conback spell, Build Strong Bodies 12 Different Ways, brought him interprovincial fame and heralded his advancement to sorcerer after a mere 25 years. Unlike his peers, Belboz criticized the decadence of the royal family and foretold the collapse of the great underground empire. Most fellow sorcerers thought Belboz's warnings were shrill or foolish, but when the empire did collapse in 883, Belboz said, "I told you so." Belboz then returned to Accompanies, where in 910, at the age of 153, he became guildmaster of the Accompanies chapter. Perhaps his greatest success, certainly his most publicized, came in 952, when he destroyed the evil giant Amithradinus. Later that year, he became the kingdom-wide secretary of the Guild of Enchanters, a post which he has held now for 2 terms. With a life expectancy of 175 years, almost 3 times that of a layperson, most sorcerers retire from the guild and become magicians emeritus or conjuration consultants long before they become bicentenarians. At 200, Belboz is the oldest member of the Circle of Enchanters, and is the oldest guildmaster ever. Speculation is rampant then whether the master sorcerer has any plans to retire. Well, the necromancer pondered last week during an interview with Popular Enchanting, I would like to travel. I haven't crossed the Flathead Ocean for over a century. I'd also be interested in visiting more chapters of the guild. Our flummox in Antharia, see the editorial on page 2, clearly shows we need to get our house in order. And certainly I'd like to be able to do more fishing. But I am really just approaching my prime. Even though I am old, my strengths and powers are at their peak. Asked whether he thought his age impeded his work, Belboz chuckled. All enchanters have youth casting spells, of course, which accounts for our longevity. I have naturally improved upon these, but I've seen some 100-year-old enchanters who think older than I do, and therefore they are older than I am. A youth casting spell affects the body but not the mind. It is worthless if its subject has an old mind. Leadership stagnation is a term that has been bandied about lately by a number of junior sorcerers, who feel that the lifetime appointment of guildmasters is too long. Guildmasters are like kings, only worse, says a sorcerer who requests anonymity. A chapter dangles the guildmaster post before its members like bait, enticing them to dedicate their life's work and devotion for it. A chapter selects a new guildmaster only once in 30, 40, even 50 years. All the qualified sorcerers who don't get chosen adopt a negative attitude knowing they'll never be guildmasters. This negative attitude, some say, is passed on to enchanters, who pass it on to apprentices, like some communicable fish disease. While no one mentions Belbaz's name specifically, his 47-year tenure as guildmaster is an obvious target of such complaints. I disagree completely with the idea that we dangle the guildmaster's post like bait, and it's simply not true that all other qualified sorcerers adopt a negative attitude, says Belbaz. I agree there may be some advantages to limiting the term of a guildmaster, but I am most upset that a sorcerer would take offense at not being chosen guildmaster. A sorcerer should be above such lowly, jealous, and power-hungry thoughts, and anyone who thinks them deserves to be turned into a newt. So fear not, Belbaz fans, the great necromancer is not ready to quit. Ask me about my retirement again, Belbaz told us, when I turn 300. There are a few ads on this page. They read, "Now! A resurrection spell for even the most inexperienced magic caster. Gaspar. From the company that developed Blorb and Quelbo comes the world's first new stowable resurrection spell. Osmu, by merely circumventing death, is not considered to be a true resurrection spell. A breakthrough in magic technology so impressive that only the wizards at United Thaumaturgy could have done it. Look for Gaspar soon at Spell Scroll distributors in your town. United Thaumaturgy, spells, and a whole lot more. Make really big Zork mids. Learn magic in just 12 weeks. Our proven learn-at-home course lets you study at your own pace. Why spend your life as a woodcutter when magic can open doors for you? Over 70% of our graduates find careers in magic-related guilds. Right? GUE Tech, Borfi, Land of Forbaz for full color catalog. Orcan the Enchanter, mentor of the Thrift chapter, says, I wouldn't go anywhere without my chevaux. There are spell books, then there are chevaux. Only the finest Michigan leather binding, ample pages of Nusto-receptive paper, able to withstand long study and heated battles, plus the renowned chevaux personalized monogram, the symbol of the discriminating enchanter. Order from Priggin, master bookbinder and authorized chevaux dealer, Misnia. The next page has a special book excerpt from Spells and the Single Sorcerer by Wilbar Memboob. It reads, this is the second of 3 excerpts to appear in Popular Enchanting magazine. Last month's installment dismissed many of the myths surrounding single sorcerers, among them the common notion that single sorcerers like granola. This month's installment is adapted from the chapter Friendship and More, and discusses the importance of making a good first impression. The final excerpt, discussing such practical matters as spells for single-serving potions and solitaire Finucci, will appear next month. Wilbar Memboob is the author of The Joy of Spells and The Enchanter Never Rings Twice, 101 uses for Resrov. Many otherwise fine and distinguished sorcerers are shy or ugly, or generally both. This does not mean, however, that they must lead a solitary existence or abstain from the simple pleasures of courtship. Several thaumaturgical suppliers sell a wide assortment of self-improvement spells and potions, and unless you are kobold ugly, most will work with few or no unpleasant side effects. It is impossible to predict when a particular self-improvement spell or potion will be needed, unless one is a very, very good sorcerer. Carrying a 6-pack of assorted potions can therefore save a situation. For instance, suppose you were walking beside a field of blossoming dragondills and you met an attractive person of the opposite sex. Should this person remark, "Aren't the dragondills lovely?" you might reply, "Oh, is that what they are?" Or simply, "Yes," or worse, "I've seen nicer." But if you had in your possession the Cyrano potion, you might surreptitiously quaff it and reply, "As lovely and golden as the rain-washed air is clear and sparkling, and fragrant and fresh as your eyes are poetic and inspiring." You must of course realize that you get what you pay for. Some so-called discount or bargain potions are no bargain at all. A Cyrano potion that wears off mid-sentence can be disastrous, as you're likely to say the first thing that comes to your mind, which is bound to be ridiculous. Your lips are like rubies, your eyes like alabaster, your hands like poached rock grub. Once you have captured your new acquaintance's attention with a charming or witty remark, you must act fast. Many sorcerers cast the Faith spell, change appearance to look younger on themselves. This is generally a mistake. If your face is reminiscent of a frog, you will suddenly look like a tadpole. If you're overweight, you may become a piglet. A better strategy is to cast the Amali spell, worsen eyesight, on your friend. The spell is painless and temporary, and should your dupe comment upon blurry vision, you might remember Elvis Flathead's hit Love is Blind, and suggest that your kind-hearted spell in fact prevented total blindness. Before I am accused of condoning deceit as the basis for a relationship, let me state outright that the casting of spells on yourself or on your partner is permissible only for the first few days of a relationship. If you cannot keep your acquaintance's interest without magic, then you should let go and part ways. Particularly reprehensible are reports of sorcerers casting body-deforming spells like Bayala and Muzdex on an unwilling partner to satisfy a personal preference. This page has another ad. It reads, "Don't be stuck short-handed. Nymphomania. Temporary nymph services. Nymphs available by the hour, by the day, by the week. We use exclusively the most polite and well-bred nymphs. Warning nymphs, guard nymphs, and serving nymphs are specialty. Nymphomania outlets are located throughout the kingdom. Visit one today." The next page has words of wisdom. It reads, "The power of positive conjuring, learning with Nusto." To the layperson, the Nusto spell is unspectacular. There are no loud noises, no pyrotechnics, no feelings of euphoria when it is cast, no changes in the environment, no great insights into the world, nothing to indicate that it is one of the cornerstones of thaumaturgy as practiced today. Yet it enables enchanters to cast and recast spells countless times reliably and effectively, freeing up magicians' time for research into new and improved spells, and bringing magic to the people, thus indirectly improving the health and welfare of the general populace. A few old-fashioned sorcerers show contempt or impatience with the Nusto spell, preferring instead to cast directly from scrolls than writing them into a book first. "There's no danger, no excitement anymore," says a retired sorcerer from Mythicus who wishes to remain anonymous. "In the good old days, you had to be careful when you used your spells. They were good only once, so you couldn't go around turning every unfriendly critter that crossed your path into a newt. Nowadays, enchanters cliche first and ask questions later." But such disdain for the Nusto spell is increasingly rare, since most sorcerers were born after its discovery and grew up accepting and enjoying it. In fact, the safety net feature of Nusto does not make the Enchanter's life less exciting, but gives the Enchanter the opportunity to use a particularly handy spell more than once. Certainly no one argues that spells cast directly from scrolls are easier to use or are more effective. Spells copied into books with Nusto lose none of their complexity or potency. One obvious shortcoming of Nusto is that it cannot write extremely powerful magic spells into a spellbook. Most scholars believe that the Nusto spell itself is too weak, though the Spell Science Lab at GUE Tech is testing a very Nusto-receptive paper which it hopes will be sensitive enough to allow even the most ancient and mighty spell to be copied. What does the future have in store for Nusto? I think it will continue to be the most popular spell we manufacture, says a spokesperson at United Thaumaturgy. It certainly changed the industry. That it has. Smooth Scroll Draftsman, once the largest supplier of common spell scrolls, now markets such diverse products as glow-in-the-dark bookmarks and synthetic toadwarts. In fact, the only scrolls Smooth Scroll now makes are high-priced custom-made spell scrolls which are Nusto protected to prevent unauthorized copying. Spellshack recently unveiled its Otsung spell, Erase spell written in book with Nusto, and International Business Magic is trying to transfer the safety net properties of Nusto to a new spell that would work on magic potions. Some want ads appear here. They read, "For sale, rubber spell scrolls, rubber magic wands, rubber spell books, rubber avocados, and more. Great for gags. Largest selection of rubber products anywhere. Right for free catalog. Must be over 54 years of age. Box Q5. Lost Cliche spell scroll. Dropped while frog watching in swamp. Small reward. Box I36. Lost Useless brass lantern. Has great sentimental value. Dropped long ago, far away. Would appreciate information leading to its return. Box Z1. Personal. Dull, irritating enchanter, male, seeks exciting, loving female for magic moments and possible lasting relationship. Must be truthful and kind, or good liar. No pros or adventurers need reply. Box Y3. Personal. Shy, outgoing enchanter, female, seeks lively, quiet enchanter, male, to share the pleasures of smokeless fires. Must enjoy sadness. Box K9. Wanted. Need one Kulkad spell scroll. Will pay top dollar. Used mine foolishly. Won't make same mistake. Box F4. Wanted. Enchanter for minor Cyclops eradication work. 2 to 4 days per month. Experience desirable. Box S4. Wanted. Letters, reminiscences, etc. by or about the thaumaturge Burzio, who invented the Nusto spell, for biography by noted scholar and Frobber. Box T6. The final page is an advertisement for Nate's Discount Scroll House. It shows a list of several scrolls, potions, and other items, their list prices, and Nate's prices. The game also came with an infotator, but we will have to look at that next time. My name is ballerscuba. This has been Video Games Over Time. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you in our next video when we continue our introduction to Sorcerer.